This is my Gen X story, part 3, and it's been a few days, maybe a couple of weeks in between part 2 and part 3. Bear with me, please. The reason I'm doing this is, one, everybody loves a Gen X story. Well, at least Gen Xers do. But I'm also keeping this as a historical narrative for my children and, God willing, someday grandchildren that will want to know about me, because I never knew anything about my grandparents when they were younger. And they never talked about it. My one grandfather was in World War II, didn't know anything about it till after he had died. I knew he was in the Army, and that was it. And now I'm the keeper of his medals. Bronze Star, 2 Purple Hearts, amazing. But I wish I could have heard his story. And my other grandfather had such an interesting story that I heard from my mother about being in prison in Joliet, where Joliet Jake was from the Blues Brothers. If you're Gen Xers, you know the reference. So where we are in part 3 is, in my life, 1975 to 76 to that era. 10 years old in 75, 76, obviously 12. We were living in an apartment in Ingleside, and we were building a house. My parents were building a house in Fox Lake Hills. And in 1976, we finally moved in. We didn't have much of a yard. It was basically dirt. And I can remember, I have a memory of playing while the framing was going up. My father would go over and run actually coax cable throughout the framing of the house. So we had basically coax cable throughout all the rooms of the house before the walls went up, just in the framing, thinking that the antennas wires can come down from the antenna on the roof so that we could have TVs in all the other rooms. Is that a Gen X thing? Also, telephone lines. We had telephone jacks. If you don't know what that is, ask your parents or grandparents, in every room in the house as well, even the bathrooms. And so this is obviously well before cell phones were a thing. And the yard was all just mangled, dirt, mounds, everything. So I would play with my friends, Army. That's what we did. In fact, my parents had bought me a replica M1 toy gun, and I had a uniform, and it had corporal stripes on it. Unbeknownst to me, I don't know why that was, but I was a corporal. So, and we would take clods of dirt and throw them as grenades, and we would fight the battles of Europe and Iwo Jima and the Pacific in the yard, as it was dug up for the foundation and then later dug up for the septic field. We had a septic tank in a field for the sewer system before we were able to get onto the city sewer later on. We moved in early 76, spring 76, and if that year sounds familiar, 1976 was the bicentennial, 200th anniversary of the United States. And I can remember sitting in the house was completed, grass was growing, and we were celebrating the 4th of July and the bicentennial and the fireworks on TV from Washington, D.C. and New York City, and the Statue of Liberty with fireworks for our 200th anniversary. And then we proceeded on the 4th of July to basically blow up the backyard, as we did every year. Fireworks were legal in Illinois at that time. At least I think they were. I know they were legal in Indiana and in Wisconsin, and we certainly would go there to buy fireworks as well. And we would just have tons and tons of firecrackers and M80s and bottle rockets, and then fountains and skyrockets and all kinds of different things, and just proceeded every year to blow up the backyard. That was growing up in the middle 70s. That's what we did, living in that house. I went to school at a Christian day school, St. Paul's in Round Lake, and started confirmation classes at St. Paul's in Round Lake with the vicar from Fort Wayne Seminary. And after school, come back home, play with my friends, do what homework I could, and take piano lessons. I took piano lessons at that time as well because my cousin could play. She was from Northwest Indiana, and obviously we would see them. This was my grandmother's sister's granddaughter. So obviously family, Christmas time, we would go visit everywhere. So every year at Christmas time. And she could play both piano and they had an organ in their living room. And I was just fascinated. And so I begged my parents if I could take piano lessons. And so I started taking lessons from the organist in our church. And also, my parents bought me an upright piano. I can remember moving it from Libertyville to our house. You know, the pianos weigh what, 3, 5, 700 pounds. You know, nice old piano. And that lasted about 6 months. I learned enough at least to read music notes, but I hated practicing. So I quit after 6 months. But it has done me well to be able to at least read my part in choir, and especially on the bass clef, because that's what I was, a bass. Still I am, I guess. But I think my singing days are pretty much all behind me. But my Gen X story will tell you the story of my singing days in a subsequent part coming up a little bit later on. So there's part 3, moving into the house in Fox Lake Hills. Part 4, I'll talk about going to public school and then going to high school from that house and what we did there and my first job. So stay tuned for part 4 coming up of my Gen X story. Tell me your story. If you stuck around this long, thank you so much. And in the comment section, tell me your story. What do you remember of the bicentennial year? Who was president? Do you remember that? And there was an election year as well. What was going on then? Who was running? Let me know if you remember without Googling it, okay? And the slogans that were used in that political contest and what you did to celebrate the bicentennial. Thanks. I'll see you next time.